In this episode of Stop, Look, and Listen, we catch up with South Carolina rappers Dan Johns and Eclipz. We discuss his latest solo release, Invisible Ink, his group Divine Sons, getting networked wrestling podcasts, and more.
So Dan, for those who are unfamiliar with you, give us a little background information. Where you from? When did you start rapping? What inspired you to pick up a pen and a pad for the first time?
Yeah, man. Yours truly, Dan Johns. Most people know me as that musically, Daniel Johnson. From Florence, South Carolina. I've been an artist since the mid-90s. I started writing rhymes and creating music in high school. I will say that the first time I ever decided to write was one of my my childhood friends was about 2 years older than me, and I was one of the first people around the way to have a computer, and you talking real early slow computers like 386,
AOL.
40, yeah, even before AOL, like matter. And there's a funny story about that because it was Prodigy. And I don't know if many people remember Prodigy before AOL, but they had the chat rooms in Prodigy, and what we would do. Is there a statute of limitation on some kind of crimes? Because this is.
I think you're past it. I think you're good.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, just skirt around it a little bit.
All right. So what would it was a hip hop chat room on Prodigy, and this is all related to what you asked me. And what we would do is you would, just like AOL used to give out the little trial disc, Prodigy had like accounts, like trial accounts, but there were some people in that chat room that figured out a way to create full accounts. And it was like a group of us, I'll say, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 of us. And we stopped using our real accounts because it was costing money. And we would get these accounts, and they would last for a little while, and then eventually it was expire, and you'd have to get new accounts. But all of us would all kind of hang out in there and type our little raps or whatever. And I ended up, that's one of the first things I did, but I ended up recording the song because my homeboy saw that I had a computer, and I figured out a way to hook up my dual cassette boombox to it. And we decided, he had an instrumental, and we just decided to write raps and make a little tape. And it goes to tie this back to the Prodigy story because it relates to me getting more serious about music. I had a guy in town that I would go to his studio and record. And I think I might have recorded 3 songs there, which for me was a million songs really, because nobody else was hitting the studio at the time. But in my room, I had this dual cassette boombox rigged up to my computer with a little $2 mic I got from Kmart. And I was recording these tapes. And I had a keyboard, but what was happening was I had another busted stereo that didn't have any sound, but it had outputs and inputs. So I had 2 stereos hooked up to my computer, one for the beat and the other one to record everything. So I had these real ashy sounding tapes because you're talking about, sound coming from 3 different things. And I was recording these tapes of me rhyming. And I had friends on Prodigy that were all over the country, and it was this one dude that was in Columbia, South Carolina. Shout out to Matt Morrison. Y'all might know Matt Morrison. He used to work at Manifest Discs and Tapes. But anyway, yeah. So Matt was like, I was like, yo man, I got these tapes, and he was like, man, let me come check, see what you're doing. So he drove to Florence. We didn't even know each other. He drove to Florence to come and rock with me, and I showed him what I had, and I dubbed him my tape. I might have had about 20 songs on this tape that I did in my room. Mind you, I don't know how to count bars. All I know is I write rhymes until the page is full. You know what I mean? So these songs might be 6 minutes of just me rapping with these terrible hooks. And I gave him a copy of the tape, and he took it back to Columbia. Now, by this time, we're talking, this is the end of my senior year in high school at this point. I started rapping like maybe a sophomore year. But this is like my senior year in high school. I'm still just doing it, you know what I mean? So Matt let his homeboy Will hear the tape. And Will tells Matt that he wants me to come to Columbia. So now this is like around the time I'm graduating, and I'm about to go to Morehouse for like a summer camp. So we're talking about maybe a 2-week period before I'm about to go start my college career, right? And my group member at the time, even though we hadn't really have a lot of professional stuff, I wasn't a solo artist per se. I had a lot of solo songs, but it was really me and my tag team partner Laz, my cousin Lazarus is we that was the group, me and him. So we get in his Celica and we ride out. We roll to Columbia, and we meet up with Matt, and Matt takes us over to off Broad River, Apple Valley. Y'all know what I'm talking about. and I meet this guy named Will and his homeboy Al. And spoiler alert, Will is Willpower, Super Hot Beats.
Willpower.
And we meet and we click immediately. I think we might have recorded 8 songs that day where they just had beats and we had rhymes, and we recorded a bunch of songs. And I think I came back that next weekend and recorded some songs, and Will was trying to get some things started. And I was like, whatever you want to do, dog, I'm down. Even though I'm going to be going to Atlanta, whenever I come home or whatever you need, that's kind of what it's going to be. That was kind of like me getting more serious about music. All I cared about was writing raps at this point. So I go to college, and I'm talking to Will constantly. And I would Will actually would come pick me up from Morehouse. He would drive from Columbia to Atlanta on Friday afternoon after classes, scoop me up. I straight to Broad River, and we would just make music all weekend, man. It was, I could go on and on about that, but me getting more serious about music was kind of sort of an accident, really, from meeting Matt and letting him get the tape, and Matt letting the tape, letting Will hear the tape. And at this same time, Will was in the beginning stages of formulating what he was doing as a local label and as a producer. And we kind of grew together, because Peach Fuzz Records was the label that he had at the time. And it was more, originally it was more oriented for like R&B and different genres. And I was his only rapper. So I was the rapper. So whenever he needed something rap related, or if it was going to be hip hop related, I was the guy. I'm gonna stop right there, because that can transition into some other stuff, but that's just kind of how it all kind of started, man. And at the time, I was going by the name Gold Machete.
Okay, well then let's get into that.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name Gold Machete, and then when did you decide it was time to divorce Gold Machete and just roll with Dan Johns?
Well, most of your first rap names are really have no real great origin story. It's really something stupid. And I was working in the mall, working at a shoe store in the mall, and that's how I stayed laced with the latest Timberlands and everything. But what was crazy about it was the shoe store was on the end of the mall, directly in front of one of those like Gold Valley joints where they were selling the jewelry. And so I would, you know how it is, man. One of the things that we do as teenagers is we pretty much spend most of our money before we get off of work. And I would buy a bunch of shoes, I would buy a bunch of clothes, and Gold Valley right there, I was gonna get me a necklace, right? So I had this necklace, and it had like this Arabian sword on it, right? And there's nothing cool about the name Arabian Sword. So I decided I was going to be Gold Machete.
I think you could have made it work.
Yeah,
you could have made it work, man.
I might could have, but it might have opened me up for
that sounds like a Killer Army name.
I know, right?
So for real.
So I decided my name was going to be Gold Machete, and it was just simply Gold Machete. But as with all things rappers in the mid '90s, I made Gold an acronym, and the acronym, the acronym that most people remember was the cool acronym, which was Given One Life to Die, obviously. But the original acronym was Gifted Original Lyrical Daniel Johnson. So yeah, this is something that I'm giving y'all some behind the scenes stuff right here, man. And if Will sees this, he's gonna laugh, because I said that on the end of some records, and it was crazy, man.
Yeah. And now, I can't remember, because I came in, I got familiar with you a little bit after that.
Yeah.
So the Gold Machete project, I don't think I ever heard it in its entirety. Now, did Willpower do most of that one?
So listen, there's 2 Gold Machete projects, one of which is, and there are 2 Gold Machete projects. There's one that most people who were around in 98 remember. And then there was another one that I put out myself, which was the first Magnum Opus Records release. The first one is a gold tape called In His Element. It's literally a cassette tape that's gold. And Will produced everything on that tape except for 2 beats, maybe 3. One of them was done by Tayson of Beat Junction Project.
Beat Junction.
And then two of the other ones were done by my homeboys in college, because I actually recorded this while I was a freshman at Morehouse. And what I did was, because if you remember, when you're working as a high school / college student, you get pretty much all your taxes back. You know what I mean? So I think I got about, I don't know, maybe $300 from my tax returns that year, and I just bought $300 worth of cassette tapes. No cover, nothing. Just made it solid gold. Made it solid gold with the track listing on the tape, because my name was Gold Machete and it was In His Element. So Will and Tenard Watts, T Watts, they did all the beats except for 3, and it was stuff that I recorded on those weekend sessions with them.
So was Peach Fuzz the only label that you signed to, or did you sign to another label after that?
So here's the deal with that. I never even answered your question about changing the name. I think what happened with the name change was I was rocking hard with Gold Machete, and there are one of the things that I did a lot as Gold Machete, and even early on as Dan Johns, was I did a lot of battling, and there was a lot of confrontations with the name Gold Machete and Dan Johns. So to the point where there are people that in Atlanta that knew me from college that still remember Gold Machete more than Dan Johns, but because of the name. I think what happened was the more I started getting serious about my music, I wanted my name to ring out. You know what I mean? And I guess Gold Machete could have technically rung out, but one of my friends, because even though I was Gold Machete, it's kind of like how rappers do. Everybody has aliases. I was always saying Dan Johns on records. I was always, you referencing that in my rhymes in addition to gold or whatever. And one of my homeboys was just like, man, you might as well just go by Dan Johns. You say it so much and it's so catchy, and it's true to you because it's your name just abbreviated. You might as well go by Dan Johns. And I really don't even know why I decided to. But I literally, I remember, and Horace, I think around the time that you met me, I literally had just changed my name to Dan Johns.
Really?
So when those New Brooklyn Tavern shows started, I had just changed my name to Dan Johns. And if you look back at some of those flyers, my name is still Gold Machete on the flyers, because it was like a recent name change when we first met, and it kind of just stuck that way. As far as the record label thing, it's kind of, we'll be fast forwarding a lot, because I released a lot. I released pretty much the majority of my catalog on my own. But what happened is probably around 2006 when I released In the Face of Danger, and that might have been 2007 actually. 2007 when I released In the Face of Danger. By that point, and if you listen to the song Black Market Rhyme, it kind of goes into a lot of this. By that point, I already understood that you had to invest in other things besides flyers and besides dope covers and t-shirts and stuff. And I hired somebody to work promo for In the Face of Danger. And dude got me some really nice looks on In the Face of Danger, like some publications like Hip Hop DX picked it up, Two Dope Boys, different websites at the time, blogs were real big at the time, and they picked it up. And he was like, listen, man, I paid him, and he was like, yo, I mean, you really got something, and you're from a region that doesn't get a lot of representation. I would like to manage you. I was like, cool. So I didn't really sign a record deal per se, but I had management in New York that was working my records and pushing my stuff and getting me placements. So I was still releasing everything under my own imprint, Magnum Opus Records, but I had backing behind me, managerial backing, and then at different points I had financial backing under Magnum Opus Records, like investors and stuff like that. So I was always really independent, but it was not, there was a team helping me, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what happened, and that was how everybody, like, No Rewinds is a video that I shot with a cheap camera, and it's a terrible music video, terrible music video. It's one of my favorite songs that I ever wrote, but because I had representation and my name was ringing out, No Rewinds was on Hip Hop DX. No Rewinds was on Double XL magazine. No Rewinds was on bigger websites. And around this time, I'm doing shows with a lot of people's favorite rappers, you know what I mean? And that was because I had a team behind me. And, you know, during that time period, like the early 2000s, skills was really all you needed, you know?
Right.
Yeah, true.
So since the label is called Magnum Opus Records, and you have an extensive catalog.
Right.
What's your Magnum Opus?
Oh, man. Jeez.
Don't say they all my babies. Don't say that.
I wouldn't say that to you. I wouldn't say that to you. I would have to, and Amen to this day says that the Book of Daniel is his favorite album.
I mean, that's my introduction to you, man. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. When I heard, I don't know if that's my favorite album, but it has my favorite song. When I heard 2002, I was like, yeah, okay, because you got to think, I'm a little bit younger coming in with my guys, and I hear that song for the first time, and I'm like, whoa, because I mean, you battle, you're more on the competitive side. I was more in the just the writing side, so I wasn't as competitive. Now I'm competitive in the sense that I'm gonna kill the beat to the best of my ability, but I'm not really looking at anyone else. You're looking at everyone, and when I saw that, I was like, this dude is a problem. Like,
I appreciate
seriously,
that, man.
like that, because I mean, even still, I mean, that first album, you could tell you're still growing as an artist. Yeah, but that song, that's still probably a really good introduction.
I appreciate it, man. I would say for me, I would have to. Can I give you 3? I mean, I got about 12. I got about 12
I was
albums.
You have a dozen albums, so
let me give me
25%.
I'm gonna give you.
Let's go. I don't even got that. I can't find it.
It's on Bandcamp. Go to danjohns.bandcamp.com. Nice. That's what I'm looking at now to look at my list. It's gonna be the Book of Daniel, In the Face of Danger, and I'm trying to keep recency bias out of it. I'm probably gonna say Alpha Rider, but I really like Invisible Ink the more I listen to it. But my 3 would be Alpha Rider, In the Face of Danger, and the Book of Daniel. My favorite of the 3 is In the Face of Danger. Because In the Face of Danger is like the Book of Daniel, but with me being polished. You know what I mean? Like In the Face of Danger, especially everybody who was around, like Horace was around, Act was around. Everybody knows that In the Face of Danger was one of those albums that got pushed back because I was doing so many shows. And because I was doing so many shows, I didn't feel like I was devoting enough time to the album. So I subsequently released like 4 mixtapes before I put the album out. Right. So In the Face of Danger is kind of like one of those deals like, let me try to think of it. I don't want to say Nostradamus but you remember how when Nostradamus came out, it got leaked and a different version of Nostradamus came out, and then I Am came out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like In the Face of Danger is like the reverse of that, in that I took a lot of the best songs from the mixtapes and then created new songs and made In the Face of Danger. Like, cause there's, for example, Bye Bye, the original version of Bye Bye was a little different. And because I was performing it a lot and I was battling over my own beats, and it was was some crazy stuff with it. So my favorite is In the Face of Danger, but my top 3 are In the Face of Danger, Alpha Rider, and the Book of Daniel, with an asterisk, because I really like Invisible Ink. And we could talk for an hour about how I messed up Yesterday's Redemption, but we're not going to even do that.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on Invisible Ink a little bit later. Yeah. And shout out to I've been trying to talk him into doing a music podcast for years. So hopefully this will put a little fire under him to do so.
Well, you know, he's getting back in the booth, man. He sent me a beat yesterday. So we're about to do some new music. So
nice.
Axe getting back in the booth, man. I hope I can hang on and keep up with him.
Well,
man,
that leads to my next question, and Horace, you can chime in as well. So as a lyricist, like from your debut to now, how do you get your lyrical exercise in, especially with both of you being family men and having other responsibilities?
Man, you know, sometimes the answers to the question can sound a little corny. And I try not to sound corny with anything that I say, but I just got to be real with you. And Horace knows this about me. And anybody. So I'm going to answer your question by saying one of the big things about Magnum Opus Records, and really our close kinship with like Horace and Nate and Sweatbox and everything, is that we would have our studio sessions a lot on the weekend. And it was kind of like an open door policy. You know what I mean? So one thing that got real big, especially with me being in Florence and all of my crew really being in Colombia, is, and then me having, most of us having full-time jobs, back in our heyday, a lot of our recording would happen on Sundays in Florence. Everybody would mob down to my crib, and we would record all day, play video games, and go eat, and then come back and record a little bit more. And it was like an all-day Sunday thing. It was like a ritual, you know what I mean? Midi Mark, and they're funny. There's a million funny stories about us, you know, eating and cracking jokes and all of my rigged up video games and stuff like that. And back during that process, so we're talking like I don't know, man, 2000, around the time of In the Face of Danger and before then, up until present, I really, somewhere in that mix, because I was working all the time and traveling, doing shows, I stopped physically writing rhymes and I started creating my rhymes in my head. You know, that's, everybody says that, but for me, it was out of necessity, not because I was trying to do something cool. I never really had a lot of opportunity to sit down with pen and pad. So I would always have instrumentals on CDs or now just on my phone, and I'd be riding, listening to the beat and crafting my lyrics. You might hear my son in the background. Hey, it is what it is.
Fine.
So for me, my creative process was to create the music in my head, the themes, the concepts, and everything in my head, so that I could, continue doing what I was doing while creating the music. Now, that has pluses and minuses to it. You can get really intricate and in depth when you have a pen and pad as far as your schemes and carrying on a long rhyme scheme on paper. And I still do that. You can hear that in my music, but it was as a result, my creative process might be what might take another artist a day might take me 3 days. You know what I mean? So that's a part of what I, would do to keep my myself sharp. And it was a part of how I kept making music. So with that being a part of my process, it became, it encouraged me to be more creative, to be more flexible, to do different concepts and things. That's kind of how I would keep myself sharp. And I think, like Horace said earlier, within that, because I was always so competitive, there was always some sort of invisible inspiration encouraging me. Like and I'll just say, if I heard a crazy song from Odyssey or Horace or Hannibal or from Street Side, or if I heard something that was just crazy, the way my mind was set up, I had to write the best song that people heard. recently. You know what I mean? So that was like my underlying always driving force, because like hip hop has always been competitive, but at that point in my career, it was always trying to exhibit that I'm the dopest cat around. You know what I mean? That's just what rappers have, you know, we tell ourselves, and that's how we encourage ourselves. So that was my encouragement then. But as I got older and as I started living a little bit more and experiencing a lot more things, the process didn't change, but the motivation changed. Like the life experiences, you know, what I wanted to speak on, what I felt the listeners needed to hear, that became more of my inspiration than just being the dopest MC on a record. Because you can be the dopest MC on a record and say absolutely nothing. Whereas you can, you know, you can really get your point across and resonate with more people and it not be so technically impressive. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I do think that's you know, you never appeared to be that type of artist. Yeah, you did have your tracks where you would say I'm the best, and you know, that was mandatory back then.
Right.
Kind of, if you were a rapper, you had to talk about, you know, how good you were. I tried to always speak on personal stuff, and I know you do too, because I mean that's why I think it's kind of ironic or kind of perfect that you change your name and then you come out with the album Book of Daniel and you're talking about personal stuff. It's almost a personal project, and all of your projects touch on something deeply personal, from your mom, you know, to, you know, past fiance, you know, things like that. So I think that you can't be really pigeonholed into that type of artist. And you always talked about a lot of stuff. So I think it's a good time to switch your name during that point in time and come out with, you know, to your personal name, so to speak, your name.
Right. That's right, man. You right. You dead on it. And I think that a part of it for me was to never, whenever I had a misstep musically, it was because I forced it. Whenever I just recorded what I felt like, whenever I wrote what I felt like writing, as opposed to when I forced it, it was always better. And yes, I'm talking about the Sex Pants song, Horace.
I'm not saying nothing, man. Look.
So like, let me give the backstory to that. So there was this was probably 2004, and I think this is the same day that I recorded "Anger Out of Pain," which was shortly after the passing of someone I was engaged to, Misty at the time. But I also recorded this other song that was me trying to be commercial, me trying to make a club hit, right? And I feel like Horace, you were there, and I know
there.
And Nate was there, and
Oz was there, because we
Oz
go with Oz up there.
Yeah, I remember. And this was before I started recording at my own studio. I was recording at 6+1 still, and I thought the song was cool, and Oz thought it was cool. But Nate and Horace were letting me have it. They were like, bruh, and they were just quoting the lyrics, and they would just text me the lyrics at different times. It was like they let me have it to the point that I never released that song on any. And I mean, I had a project that came out not long after that, and I never released that song because they just let me have it.
But you need people like that to tell you. I mean, to be honest, like, you can either have ego. Like, when someone tells me, because Menace has done the same thing for me. I had songs that I felt really strongly about going on a project, and he's like, nah. And then Joel Ortiz and Crooked I come out with that as their single, and I still think my version is better. Even though I can't rap as good as them, my hook is better than theirs, and I think the song is better. And I love them, but still, it's not going to see the light of day. So, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes it happens.
So are you your own worst critic when it comes to listening to your old material?
Yeah, for sure. But what's surprisingly, what bothers me more than anything isn't so much the lyrics. It's more so the quality. Like, Yesterday's Redemption, right? Yesterday's Redemption came out in 2003. And I recorded this entire album at Will's studio at the time in Columbia. And one thing about artists is we are very impatient creatures. And I recorded this album every Sunday, driving to Columbia, recording, and then coming back to Florence. You know, I did this for like every week for a long period of time. And because Will was gracious enough to let me use his studio, but, you know, on Sundays, because the rest of the week he was, you know, had a lot, people that were paying a lot more money than I was able to pay at the time. Also around this time, I'm traveling and performing. Around this time I had just, so we talking 2003. So this is around the time I had met and done shows with Lil Brother, and we were reasonably we were cordial. I won't go as far as to say we were like speaking on a daily basis, you know, but we were in the same circles and, you know, traveling and performing in a lot of the same places. So my name was starting to ring out from that, you know, because at the same time, I'm at this point, battling was putting food on the table sometimes. Like I was literally going to North Carolina and entering MC contests like twice a month, winning, you know, getting that money, you know, it might not have been a whole lot, but it was extra, you know what I mean? So my name was ringing out in the triangle, which at the time with the way things were going, that was kind of a good thing to do. But I had this project coming out and I wanted to put this project out because I'm thinking the faster I get the project out, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. But only 2 songs on that project were officially mixed. It was Hip Hop Vet, which is probably a lot of people, one of my favorite songs of my catalog, and
produced
Empire.
By Ill Natured.
Yeah, produced by Ill Natured, for sure. What up, Nate, Caleb, and Empire. But when I was ready to release the album, it wasn't mixed. And I couldn't really press to get it mixed because of the financial situation and the agreement. So I really put that project out without it being mixed properly. And I hate that I did that to this day, because some of my favorite songs are on that project, but because of the way they're mixed, I can't really enjoy them like I would like to. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of something that like when I listen to my old music now, the lyrics don't bother me as much as the actual sound quality does.
Okay.
Lucky at me. My old lyrics bother me.
So, I have this.
I don't even have that.
It actually has all 3 of our names on there. So that's a fun fact as well. So for those that couldn't see, that's Horace's song, The Whole Army, featuring Dan Johns and Fat Rat. Just tell us about the concept, Horace, and why you chose Dan and Fat to get on there. And then Dan, you can take us behind the scenes of how you crafted your lyrics for that joint.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the concept, I really was trying to kind of carry on tradition from Sweatbox, because, everyone was kind of off doing their own thing. I was kind of coming to my own as a solo artist, and, I looked at the Odyssey album, an album that, I did with my brothers, that I really wish I was more involved initially. So I kind of want to carry tradition. And if you look back at that album, the 2 features outside of the people that's inside Sweatbox was Dan and Street Side. So I kind of wanted to just do a song with them in mind and kind of keep that going. And plus I respect them both as artists, as men, have a good relationship with both parties and always got along and love the music, because I can't work with someone who I don't like their music, first and foremost. That's just me. I can't sugarcoat it. I had people send me stuff before and say, hey, you'll jump on this. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to waste my time. I mean, because it's hard. I have to be moved and motivated to do something with you. So just respecting those guys' pen and the work they put in, not really looking at a fan base or anything, just respecting the music side, because I don't really care about a fan base. If you dope, you dope.
Right.
Granted, they have a fan base, but I took that. And, it's always a challenge coming in. I'm relatively new even though I'm new as a solo artist and getting on the track with some monsters, you know, and having to hold my own. On top of that, recording my verse first and sending it to Dan to know what he can do, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's okay. But still, you know, it was like just I kind of wanted to do something to show the unity in South Carolina and bring everyone together. And Shaquille just kind of executed that vision, and you know, it came out dope. It was a good event, good turnout, good day.
I love that record, man. It actually, we recorded that record a while before Shaquille and Fat kind of fell in love with the concept and brought that to light, like the visual. I remember when you sent me the beat, and the thing about, to me, what I remember is I remember like, I was like, yo, Horace is getting all these Johnny Fraze beats, and I couldn't get none at the time. So like, I remember like, yo, Fraze was sending you mad beats, and I was like, yo, this dude is getting all the Fraze beats. And then you sent me that, I was like, yo, all right, I'm gonna have to do something on this beat so Fraze can start, you know, rocking with me, you know. So I was like, I'm gonna do my thing on this beat, so when Fraze hear it, he can start rocking with me. Which is funny because outside of some of my earlier work, doggone No Debating That, produced by Johnny Fraze, is probably a lot of people's favorite Dan Johns song now. But I remember that was my logic when I was writing that rhyme, was to just, it was more so like, yo, I deserve these Johnny Fraze beats too. So that's how I approached it from a songwriting perspective. But the video shoot was so dope to me because, you know, Shaquille is a consummate professional, you know what I'm saying? And Shaquille did everything the right way, from putting together the treatment to sending out, you know, documentation. We had itinerary that was airtight, you know what I mean? Everything was on point. It was so on point that even, you know, just kind of like, my wife and I tell people this all the time, and Horace, you can attest to this. Troy, you married?
No.
Okay. All right,
I don't even want to touch on that.
Well, what I was going to say is, what people tell you when you get married is that on your wedding day, something is going to go wrong. You just have to be ready for it. And it's going to happen. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but something is going to go wrong. You can't avoid it. Like on my wedding day, some money came up missing, and it was just something we had to deal with. But I say that to say that Shaquille was so airtight with the planning of the whole army that even when there was a power issue at the first shoot, at the first location, remember that, Horace?
Yeah.
Even with that power issue of which affected the lighting of that first scene, it ended up turning into a positive, because they flipped it and used the natural light to make a real eerie shot of the three, gritty shot of the three of us. And that's what I remember about that. Like the way he put it together, the execution of it. We shot at 3 locations, 3 different scenes for the most part for each one of our verses, and then like a collaborative scene at the end with pretty much everyone that was rocking with us and rocking with the movement in South Carolina hip hop at the time. And it was done so professionally and so concise that I walked away from that inspired. Like I was just floored by how he did that. And that's what, you know, salute to Shaquille, the Love Peace hip hop movement, Nonstop Hip Hop Live movement, and just everything, you know, On the Real Films, all of that media. It's just, you know, that you know, that level of professionalism is something that he's carried into everything that he's touched. And actually, you know, like he said in his interview, I wouldn't be the artist that I am without that level of professionalism from him and the opportunities that he provided to talent.
Shout out to Shaquille. I'm trying to work something out to where me and him can collaborate on a project. That's all I'm going to say right now.
For sure.
But, so let's get into your latest release, Invisible Ink. I have several songs that I would like to, you know, get more in depth on.
Okay.
So the first track on the album, Butterfly on the Window, you spoke about the death of your mom and like the molding of a young man with imperfections to the point of you making her proud.
Right.
Speak on the therapy of being able to spill out those emotions on a track?
So actually the 1 year, I don't like the anniversary. It's been a year since my mom passed. And actually by the time this airs, her birthday, June 30th, will probably have passed. So rest in peace to Cynthia Johnson, my mother.
Definitely rest in peace.
So you're talking about around Father's Day 2019, a little before then. My mom had been ill for a while, but her health had deteriorated a great bit. I just want to give you a little bit of insight. Also, big thanks to my brother Anand Negrio from Divine Sons for the poetry that he laid on this track, because he came through in the clutch. And as I tell you the story, if you go back and listen to the song after you hear the story, it'll kind of make more sense to you. My mother was living in Virginia for many years. Actually, she moved to Virginia the same year that my fiance had passed in 2004, and I took her up there. My mother had been doing well up there and thriving, and she had kind of overcame some issues that she had with, bouts with addiction and other things in South Carolina, and she got a fresh start up there. Now, with that being said, my mom, her health had started deteriorating from, different causes and different ailments. One thing about my mom, she always loved butterflies. You know how, we all have something that we're just into. She was into butterflies, right? So her health had started deteriorating, and she decided that she was finally ready to come back home and be with her family so we could take care of her and, everything like that. And on the way down here, she was feeling really, really bad. She was doing in pretty bad shape. So they drove her straight to the hospital, and I met her at the hospital. Like, when she got to South Carolina, she pretty much spent the rest of her life in the hospital in Florence, South Carolina. So she was really sick, but we didn't know how sick she was. So then she got so sick that they put her on the ventilator so she wouldn't breathe on her own, so they could try to, give her medicines and treat her and everything. So when they decided to take her off of the ventilator, they weren't sure if she was going to live or not. So at this point, we're in McLeod Hospital in Florence, and we're, I want to say on the fourth floor, four floors up from the ground, and we make the decision to give her the opportunity to breathe on her own. And this is ICU. So ICU, you know how that goes. It's not so many people in the room at the time, and there's a little bench outside the room, and you kind of just sit there and take your turns. So I'm sitting on this bench outside my mom's room, and they took her off the ventilator, and she started breathing on her own. Now, it took a while for her to kind of come to, because she had been under for so many days. So she started breathing on her own when we took off the ventilator. So we're on the fourth floor. I'm sitting on this bench, my aunt sitting beside me, and a butterfly lands on the bridge of the window right outside my mom's room, like literally right there on the day that we made this decision, not knowing if she was going to live or die. So it was very touching, and it was, a sign of sorts. My mom lived for probably another week and a half, 2 weeks after that, where she was able to laugh and sing and interact with her grandkids and her siblings and her nieces and nephews and whatnot. And she actually told us that she was fine, she was ready, and she had a very, I guess, the best transition you can have in this type of situation. So, like I said earlier, I never like to do anything deliberate. Like, I don't sit down and say I'm going to write a song about my mom now. That's not how I work. But I just felt compelled to craft something one day. And another big thing about Invisible Ink is, with the exception of 1-2 songs on that project, I did all of the production. So I made the beat for Butterfly in the Window based off of how I was feeling. And then, of course, the way I felt when I made the beat compelled me to talk about my mom. So it was very therapeutic to get that out. And the coolest thing about it is getting that out and being able to send it to my mom's siblings and my cousin who was like a daughter to my mom, and for them to actually experience what, my thoughts, my emotions through music, and then to be able to share that with each other and other loved ones for my mom. That was kind of the beautiful thing about that. And it's the same thing for Shoes and Walking Suits, which is this track about my dad who had passed about less than a year before my mom did. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that too, because I have a similar situation. I met my biological father for the first time in 2018. And I'd say about in 2008 or 2009, I wrote a letter that I posted on social media saying like the one person I would love to interview is Terry, my biological father. So I had all of these questions, but when we finally got together and met for the first time, it was all obsolete. I didn't care about any of those questions. I just wanted to embrace the situation.
Right.
Just us try to form some sort of connection. And like, I paid attention to the mannerisms, trying to figure out, wow, like he walks, well, I walk exactly like him, or I tap my knee exactly like him at the same time. We're both sitting, he was with his wife and I was with my fiance at the time. And we're like doing the same exact thing. So with Shoes and Walking Suits, just talk about your experience meeting your biological father and the time that you and him was able to spend before he passed away.
Man, rest in peace, Eugene McBride, my father. Very, very great man. And every moment that we got to spend together was very rewarding and very different than what I thought it would have been. Because in a lot of my, not a lot, but in my earlier music, there was a chip on my shoulder about him not being around. And I think I spoke on it at times. And, but meeting my dad, it came out of nowhere. Like I was literally chilling and got a phone call from my mom that he just showed up at my grandma's house and was like, "Can you come here?" And I was like, okay. So that's how it started. And of course, this is peak Dan Johns, still a lot of Gold Machete going on. So I'm very confrontational at this time. And I thought that I was going to greet him with all of that energy. And it didn't really go like that. I did confront him about what happened. And he gave me the best answer that he could about what happened. And what we did from there was kind of just play it by ear, kind of hung around each other. I think he came and played some cards with me, which is a real big deal for me, playing cards, and we ate and laughed and joked. And it was very similar to what you said, in that his sense of humor and my sense of humor were similar. We were both very competitive. A lot of qualities about myself that I couldn't understand from observing my mom or some of my aunts and uncles made sense from observing him and his siblings. So that was very, very great, especially because I hadn't become a husband yet, and I hadn't become a father yet. So it was like I was learning about myself, and that information has helped me learn how to express myself and how to be a better father and a better husband, because there's, you get your positives and your negatives from your parents. So your shortcomings come from, you got to take ownership for a lot of them as well, but you can better address them if you have a full understanding on why you are the way that you are. So that was a great thing about me and my dad. And we laughed a lot and we talked a lot about a lot of things. I got more into cooking after I got married, cooking and grilling and things of that nature. So I could call him, and my dad could really cook. So I could call him and he could point me in the right direction on some seasoning or what to do with stuff. And it was just that was kind of one of the things that we did. And he was he was a Raiders fan like me, but my dad's fanship had its limitations because I cannot confirm or deny if he liked to bet money on stuff. So his fanship might coincide with who was the best bet. So so his Raider fandom kind of went away when the Eagles were winning games, or if the Panthers were doing all right, you kind of hear him cheering for different teams. But that was just a good thing that we shared and that we could experience. And getting to be there for him after he got ill and spend time with him, even when he was ill, he was always loving and funny and laughing and it was just a good experience. And Shoes and Walking Suits to me is just kind of a homage to him. And because him and my mom passed so close together, it felt perfect to book in this project with love and respect for them both.
Nice. So I'll just go with one more off the album, Invisible Ink. Let's go to On the Snare. You had a line where you said, "Why rap about the trap when we all live in it?"
Yeah, man. It's kind of really what it is what it is, man. This time that we live in right now, we're placed in scenarios with some very difficult odds to overcome. You know what I mean? And the benefits and the pluses of the lifestyle of being in the trap or hustling or whatever you might want to call it, those pluses, those pros do not outweigh the cons. I mean, if you are lucky or blessed enough to overcome, those circumstances and parlay it into something, positive, like some entertainers or artists have been able to, then that's great. But it's really when you look at the grand scheme, it's a lot of effort for minimum results. You think about it, and I was listening to the podcast of The Wire that Jamil Hill and Van Lathan are doing, and they referenced how Nino Brown said on how Nino Brown was saying about that they don't have boats or planes in the hood to bring in the drugs. And when you think about that, it kind of goes along with, everything that about what I said in that line, why rap about the trap when truthfully we're all in it. The money that the drug dealers make that they think is such big money is a fraction of what's really being made off of that trade. I mean, you're talking pennies on the dollar to what the drug trade is generating for other communities. Yeah, man. So that's kind of what I needed to say about that.
Okay, so you're also in a group, Divine Sons. Would you like to talk about how you all came together, and then we can touch on your current single, Absolutely No One?
Yeah, man. So Divine Sons is parallel to Go Machete and Dan Johns. Like the two things happen at the same time. When I'm coming home on the weekends to do songs with Will, I'm also, during the week, I'm in college in Atlanta, and I'm, battling for my name, and I'm meeting other like-minded brothers. So like, okay, so when I first went to college, you notice I didn't really say anything about battling when I first started rapping because that wasn't a thing. When I first get to college, you get in these ciphers and everybody gets their turn to rap and somebody takes a turn doing the beatbox, a different era, but that was the beginning for me. And I'm saying my little raps and whatnot, doing my thing, and people were feeling me, but there were different people from different regions from all over. And so the more prominent regions at the time would just diss you. You know what I mean? Like the ones who had control of hip hop at the time would just diss you. You from South Carolina, you can't rap. I'm coming at you, So after a couple of experiences like that, I decided that I had to change up my freestyles, and they couldn't be so peaceful and fun loving. I had to go at people's necks. So it was like you know, I was basically battling for not only my individual respect, but respect for my state. It's like, yo, y'all not gonna just talk about South Carolina like just because it's South Carolina that we can't have spitters. So I'm battling, and what happens is it's another guy that I'm battling in these ciphers. He looks like me, you know, we both got the same build. He's from Arkansas by way of New Mexico by way of Arkansas. He's coming crazy. He's freestyling in different languages and all kinds of stuff, man. And we're going at it. So it's like basically the ciphers went from, you know, the up north cats trying to diss everybody that wasn't from up north to Dan, Gold Machete and Anonymous eating anybody who jumped in the cipher. And then eventually after they eat everybody to jump in the cipher, they battle each other. So that's my brother Anonymous. He's one of my group members. So what happened is we all met on the strip like that, battling. And some of our brothers that were also freshmen at the time saw that and put us in the same crew. At the time it was called Divine Mind. So we started running together, and we started, you know, actually the trips that I would make to Columbia on the weekends, I started bringing them with me sometimes, and we would go to Will's spot and record as a group, and then go back and listen to the same songs 1,000 times, and then go back and do some more. So Divine Mind was our crew, and we started, you know, doing shows and, you know, putting out little projects and whatnot. And when I came back home, you know, I left school after 2 years and came back home to South Carolina. I was doing my Dan Johns thing, and they kept doing their Divine Mind thing, but we were always still cool. Now, you fast forward to about 2014, and we kind of were talking on social media about, man, we need to do some more songs together, you know, and just see what happens. And we started doing the songs, and because the original iteration involved people that weren't really a part of the new iteration, and then there were copyrights and trademarks involved, we kind of turned it into Divine Sons, which is our own baby, you know, the same people, the same core, if you will, but our group. So you're talking about, I'm here in South Carolina, several members are in Atlanta, we got one in Boston, one in Las Vegas, you know, all over, and they all pretty much adapted using the same, we all adapted to using the same DAW to record. And it started out with everybody recording their parts and sending them to me arranging them, and we went from there. But now it's just it's a living and breathing thing that is totally different than our individual careers. So Divine Sons has released 5 albums in 5 years, and we released our last album, All Is Well, in 2017. But when the pandemic hit, we just were inspired. We always make music, but we were inspired to release another project. And before we released that project, we wanted to do something with all members of the group, because a lot of the songs might have 4 members of the group or 3 members of the group or 2 members of the group. But we wanted to do a song that had all of the real sons on it. And I made a beat that I was feeling. I was like, yo, this is what we need to do. So I sent it out, and that song became Absolutely No One. And it's just basically us living in the pandemic, you know, still keeping our swords sharp, and drop the record, you know. And then we shot the video. Everybody shot their own part using their cell phones, and then I edited it together and we put it out. With that being said, there's an album coming out called The Beautiful. Absolutely No One is featured on that album, and we actually just wrapped recording and I delivered the files to a guy that I know, one of my close friends and collaborators, Alfonso Montgomery, yesterday, and he's mixing the album now.
Boy, I've missed those days. It's nice to just record one verse and be done.
It's different, man. It's different, man. And in the crew, the thing is, we talk every day, you know, so it's like we talk every day, and concepts evolve, promotional ideas evolve, and there's a lot of bouncing of ideas and sacrifices made. And I enjoy it because it's an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than just myself. And sometimes, as being in a group, you know, sometimes somebody else's idea will take you in a direction that you didn't even think you were about going in. So that's the beauty of Divine Sons, you know?
Yeah, good thing is you're more mature now. I think when we really could have taken advantage of our situation, because we had all the talent in the world,
right.
We just were too young. You know,
egos,
egos, not necessarily everyone on the same page. So the fact that you're coming into a group situation now where you're older, more mature, you're not going to let ego come into play.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing, man. So that's really dope.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
So you've sort of been a veteran of this podcast industry as well. But you're not talking about hip hop.
Nah.
You sort of focus on a guilty pleasure of many, young men, within our age demographic, and that's professional wrestling.
Right.
What led to that?
Getting networked. Man, the funny thing, I actually just got a message from Dustin just now about the next episode we need to watch. The funny thing about getting networked is, okay, so Dustin Spencer, the artist formerly known as Amen, one of my best friends in this whole world. We literally talk, if not daily, we talk so frequently that it's just a ongoing conversation constantly, right? And through music, before and after music, we still talk, and we would talk about the same kind of crazy stuff all the time. And he originally he started when the WWE, and it might have even been, it was either right when the WWE network launched or a little before it. No, it was when the network launched. He started a blog, and the blog was called Getting Networked. And he told me what he was going to review, and I would watch it, and then I would read his blog, and then I would make comments on it, and we would talk in our normal text thread about the stuff, right? So then he decided somebody asked him to do a podcast, right? And if you know Dustin, or Amen, if you know Dustin, he's not a technical guy. And if you know me, I am a technical guy. So we were having a conversation, and I was telling him what he would need to do it, like as far as what he would need to set up and what software would be the best way to do it. And to be honest with you, somehow along the course of having this conversation, it became our podcast, right? like originally it was just going to be me helping him to get it set up, but then we naturally talk about this stuff anyway. So it became me and him doing the podcast together. So we started doing the podcast, and it's cool. But what took us by surprise is the amount of people that really like the podcast. So, I mean, there were some weeks, man, and I don't want to throw too many numbers out here, but there were some pretty large numbers of people listening to this podcast. And it kind of took on a shape of its own. And there are a lot of sayings and things that we do on the podcast that people kind of got into. And I eventually ended up rapping an intro to the podcast, and we just started doing it. And what happened was life kind of got in the way in that, we both had more responsibilities, second or third kids that were born, and it was hindering the ability to do Getting Networked the way we wanted to do it. So I told him I needed a break, and I took a break, around the time that my youngest son was born. And then we tried to do another little spinoff about watching stuff on Netflix that people received it well, because our core audience was just wanting to hear us laugh and talk about stuff. Right. But we ended up stopping with that. And when the pandemic hit, he was like, man, we home anyway, we might as well do some episodes of the show for however long and just see what happens. What you think? I said, hey, I'm home. I got this stuff, from me mixing and doing other stuff around the crib. Let's give it a shot. So we relaunched the podcast when the pandemic started, and it's been received really well. And what we've done differently this time is because one of the things that was hard for us was the pressure. Like, we were dropping episodes every Wednesday, but we were doing it backwards in that we might record Tuesday night. You know what I mean? So that pressure when you got kids and you got responsibilities, that's what was making it hard to do Getting Network. So just to pull the curtain back a little bit, a lot of our listeners know this, but Getting Network is now recorded 2 weeks in advance. So we got 2 in the chamber. So that takes a lot of the stress off of it, and we can be flexible if something comes up about recording, so we don't have to actually record and me edit it the night before and it come out the next day. So Getting Network is really thriving right now on the relaunch because we've taken the time to get ahead of the game, and you know, we've been doing them in like little packets. Like it's normally 2 or 3 week viewings that we do, so that it can like follow a little story. So like the one where, I don't want to spoil it, where we are in the process, but you know, we kind of do it in packets. So if we start something fresh, you can guarantee that the next 2 episodes are more than likely 3 will be about the same topic. And that helps us when we're viewing it. And it just makes it more fun to just hop in real quick of a time period and hop out. So yeah, man, that's kind of something that Dustin and I have always been passionate about. And we get to share our experiences together and just cut up, man.
So do you watch the current product at all?
I do. It's been hard during the pandemic though, because of I can't tolerate too much wrestling without fans. It's hard.
It is an adjustment.
Yeah, it's hard.
Between the 2 WrestleMania matches, the Boneyard match and the Firefly, which one did you prefer?
The Firefly. The Boneyard match, they're both good, but the Firefly was creative. The Firefly was more creative to me, and it was so silly that it was entertaining. And I think like if I had to watch one of them right now, like you made me watch one, I'm gonna watch the Firefly because it's funny and it's entertaining, and it kind of shows you a lot of why they want John Cena in Hollywood, and then you know the charisma that Bray has that we connect with. Those 2 matches, I would say the Firefly is more of my favorite.
Okay. What about you, Horace? Did you watch? Because I know you're like a passive, like sometimey wrestling fan.
So listen.
I mean, I have not been a fan for a minute. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been watching. I still listen to. I was listening to their podcast, and it would kind of keep me abreast of things.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't keep up with it, man, because it's just not as I don't love it as much as I used to.
Now, one thing that I do miss is when Dustin and Caleb were roommates, and we would have those WrestleMania parties. We would watch WrestleMania at the crib, and it would be libations, food.
Yeah,
and
those are great.
We had a whole episode of the pod. I got to find which episode it was when we talked about that Goldberg and Lesnar match. You remember? Did you hear that episode? Because we talked about how mad Caleb was. How mad
Are you talking about the Lesnar Goldberg from WrestleMania 20 or the one from
the old joint, the old one. And Caleb was so mad, and we were picking at him because he thought Goldberg was just going to do it.
Yeah.
Bruh, he was so mad, and that we did a whole episode about that. I got to find that episode of the pod and let y'all listen to it, because, man, people that didn't even know, because, you know, a lot of our fans don't know us, and they were feeling sorry for Caleb, but how we went on him in that episode, man. It was good stuff.
So who would you take lyrically in a Four Corners? PN News, R-Truth, John Cena, or Macho Man?
Man, we got episodes about PN News, his PN News lyrics too. You gotta the archive, man. I gotta get the archive online. I would take R-Truth. John Cena's got funny lines, but he has no delivery. But that'd
probably be Menace's pick. He loves him from Cena at the time, boy.
Cena was good, man. But R-Truth, to me, he's kind of old school now with it. But actually, no. Did y'all hear his song he dropped recently? It actually was all right. R-Truth
did a 24/7 with him on the network.
Dude is all right.
Yeah.
But I would probably pick R-Truth, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cena came out in the Four Corners rap battle. I'm not even entertaining the Macho Man at all. Rest in peace.
So what's a couple of the worst wrestling gimmicks that you've seen? And it was like, whoa, because a few of mine would be Eugene, of course.
Eugene was genius, man.
You think so?
Eugene was genius, man. Eugene was a genius. It was just Vince messed it up and made it stupid. But the gimmick of him having a learning disability, but he was able to do everybody else's style was genius. It's just that the execution got kind of silly. I'm telling you, man, we talk about this kind of stuff. Yo, we can
like Rain Man.
Yeah. He was like the Rain Man of wrestling, really. But the dude, who was the dude that had the fursuit, not Elegante, but when he went to the Giant Gonzalez, when he went to WWE and he had the little fur on his suit with the drawn muscles.
Yeah.
That's got to be in the top of the list of terrible. What
about Isaac Yankem?
Isaac Yankem was bad, but that's Vince. You know, that's the kind of stuff Vince was doing then. But he became Kane. So I mean, you got to let that go. But Rockabilly. We talked about that recently on the podcast. Billy Gunn, when he was supposed to be like Honky Tonk Man's protege, that was terrible. Yeah, I could do this all day. As you can see, y'all need to listen to Getting Network.
Boogeyman. Did you like Boogeyman?
Boogeyman was gross, but it was kind of over though. I mean, it wasn't. When I think of a bad gimmick, let's kind of put the definition of that. A bad gimmick to me is one that doesn't get over. Like the fans aren't into it. Either the fans don't hate him enough as a bad guy, or they don't like him enough as a good guy. Like Boogeyman was over. Like he would have, the crowd would be into him. Like same thing with Eugene. If you go back, Eugene got a good crowd pop. Like the stuff that I see, when I call it a bad gimmick, is like when the crowd doesn't care. They don't want to see you anymore. You know, they don't hate you enough to dislike you. They just don't want to see you. That's so
who was the guy that had, and it was within the last 5 years or so, it was basically a rave party whenever he came to the ring. It was about 40 people with him.
That was he was either Adam Rose, he did
that was it.
Yeah, Adam Rose for sure. I stay up on this stuff, man. But y'all need to make sure y'all check out Getting Network. It's on all streaming platforms. And Dustin and I, and as a matter of fact, if you're on Twitter and you use the hashtag G Network, you can ask your questions and we'll answer them live on Twitter and on the show, man. It's just something that we do. It's like a passion of ours, man. It's really fun, and it kind of takes the edge off of a long work week, man.
Nice. So I had a random fact. The Italian Stallion almost sold me a PT Cruiser back in 2004.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool, man. The Italian Stallion. I remember him. I can't remember his real name, but did he still have the long mullet, the black dark black hair mullet?
He cut it off.
That's what's up.
Yeah, because he was working at a car dealership in Charlotte, and I was desperately trying to, replace my car that was pretty much out of commission, and he just happened to be the salesman.
That's what's up, man. Hey, I'm glad a lot of these wrestlers, man, when they stop doing it, they struggle, but a car dealership is a pretty good landing spot for somebody of his ilk. The Italian Stallion, he didn't get a lot of wins, but he got a lot of TV time.
Right. Yeah, on TBS on
for sure.
Saturdays.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Brooklyn Brawler.
Oh man,
Brooklyn Brawler. I think I've seen him win once.
Yeah, he didn't win a whole lot, but he got that behind his backstage job. So I think he's still catching checks.
Oh yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
All right, so between Dan and Horace, tell us where we can find out more about you and your music on social media. All
right, on Twitter and Instagram, I am at DanJohnny5, DanJohnny, the number 5. Of course, on Facebook, my real name is Daniel Johnson, but if you put in facebook.com/Dan Johns, you'll get to my page, and you can follow me there. All of my music releases are available on all streaming platforms. If you wanted to buy the whole discography at a discount, you can go to danjohns.bandcamp.com. That includes pretty much all of my solo albums, some mixtapes, even the Tech Files album I did with Al One. But like I said, any streaming platform that you look for Dan Johns on, I'm out there, from Pandora to Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, wherever you listen to music, I got work out there, a lot of work out there. Appreciate y'all supporting me, but please support Divine Sons, Divine Sons, sun like sun in the sky, divinesons.bandcamp.com, and Divine Sons is also on all streaming platforms. And if you find me on a streaming platform, it'll show you that I also am linked to Divine Sons. So, and of course, Getting Networked, our podcast, Dustin Spencer and myself. So I sound like a promo machine right now, man, but I got to get it all out. Check us out on all streaming platforms as well. Talking about classic wrestling, not any we'll might touch on modern stuff in our little media diet stuff, but it's more so classic stuff. Thanks, man. That's pretty much all of the stuff I need to plug at this time.
Oh, that was plenty.
That was a lot, man. I don't have much to plug. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Eclipz, ECLIPZ _SC. And you can my last album, $1 Million Dream, is on all streaming platforms, all DSPs, so Apple Music, Pandora, wherever you can find it is there. So, check that out. It's a little bit long in the tooth, but I think it's still relevant with everything. It stood the test of time pretty well, and hopefully I can get something new out there soon. We'll see.
Let me get a 16.
I got you, man.
Well, fellas, it's been a pleasure. We covered a lot of ground today. Sitting here with two of South Carolina's preeminent MCs, and I just want you all to continue to push lyricism forward, and you make a Palmetto State brother proud, even though I'm currently in a triangle. I think that Duke. I think the best is yet to come. So,
sure.
As a fan, I look forward to hearing what both of you have in store. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, this is LaTroy Gardner signing off.
Thank you for checking us out on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe for more great content. And don't forget to check us out on social media at GOB Radio Network.